This is the White House, and until recently, a hobby shop drone could fly right over the fence before anything down here flagged it as a threat. A faint buzz drifts over the rooftops of the White House. A direction lights up on a screen. A camera whips around to a patch of empty sky. And there it is, a dot nobody's eyes had found yet. The thing that caught it has no radar dish on it at all, and it just did something this airspace couldn't do for years. It heard the drone coming. That system is just one piece of what's going up around the White House right now. To see why, rewind to just after 3 a.m. on January 26, 2015. An off-duty government intelligence employee is flying a small quadcopter for fun a few blocks away and loses control of it. The drone drifts toward the White House, slips over the fence, and comes down on the ground. The radar ringing the building never flags it. It's too small and too low to register. The only reason it was even noticed was that a Secret Service officer just happened to catch it skimming through the dark. A hobby shop drone had just crossed the most defended airspace on Earth, and the system built to guard it never saw it as a threat. For 200 years, the rule was to stop a threat at the wall. Get the fence right, get the doors right, and you've done your job. That worked when the threats were a person or a weapon or a vehicle at the gate. It doesn't work anymore. A $600 drone can do what used to take a whole aircraft. A swarm can come down from 10 directions at once. A threat can now arrive from straight up, faster and cheaper and smaller than anything the old wall was built to stop. Start with the drone, because the drone is the threat that broke the old playbook. The radar ringing the White House was built to catch big things, planes, helicopters, anything from the size of a Cessna all the way up. A consumer quadcopter throws back a signature the size of a sparrow, and the White House itself sits on a flyway that's thick with real birds. Turn the radar up to catch the small stuff, and every gull over the Potomac trips the alarm. Turn it down to ignore the birds, and the drone sails through. Either way, the radar loses. So this new system stopped looking and started listening. The 16 microphones sit in a tight array, each one a fixed distance from the next. When a sound rolls across them, it reaches the near edge a hair before the far edge. And a hair here means billionths of a second. The box clocks that lag at every microphone and runs the geometry backward. A sound that arrives even across all 16 is directly overhead. A sound that hits one edge first and is off at an angle, the box pins that angle down to a degree or two. It's the same calculation your own head does without telling you. A noise hits one ear a fraction before the other, and you turn straight toward it. The microphone array just does it with 16 ears that never get distracted. Then a piece of software, trained on the sound itself, makes one call. Drone or not a drone? It learned on hours of real rotor audio, so it knows the difference cold. So a lawnmower 2 blocks over won't fool it. Neither will a passing helicopter. Nothing else sounds quite like 4 small rotors screaming at 20,000 RPM. Each blade slaps the air hundreds of times a second. In a whine, the software has heard 10,000 times in training. By the time the camera finishes swinging onto the target, the system has it locked and tracked. It's Shazam for drones. It hears the sound, names it, and points at the speaker. And listening beats looking for one reason. Sound doesn't care about size. A pigeon and a quadcopter look identical on radar, but they sound nothing alike. But hearing the drone is the easy part. Now the system has to take it down, and it's sitting over a packed city. Shoot it out of the sky here, and the wreckage, plus the rounds fired at it, rains onto a sidewalk full of tourists. A gun is out before anyone reaches for one. So watch what the new system does instead. An interceptor leaps off its launch deck and races out past the perimeter, out toward the intruder, away from anything below. It's a drone itself, a fast one, built for nothing but the chase. Finding the target in the air is its own trick. The interceptor carries a small radar and a camera and hands it off between them as it closes. Far out, the radar does the work, painting the target as a blip to steer toward. Up close, the camera takes over. Because at short range, a camera sees the exact shape and motion a radar smears into a blob. But the handoff has to be clean. Lean on the radar too long and the interceptor is chasing a fuzzy return. Switch to the camera too early and it's hunting a speck it can't resolve yet. Get it right, and the interceptor arrives with the target centered in frame. Then comes the net, and the timing runs on a knife's edge. Too early and the net opens short and the drone flies past the cloud. Too late and the interceptor overshoots and has to come around again. The guidance threads that needle in the half second it has. It fires a tethered net the size of a small parachute at the exact range where the net is widest and the drone has nowhere to slip. The mesh blooms open and swallows the drone whole. The rotors foul, the lift cuts out, and the tangled mess drops into a controlled tow. Then it carries the wreck off to bare ground where it can come down on nobody. That's a kinetic interceptor, and kinetic just means physical. It's not scrambling a signal, it's putting a real object on the target and dragging it down. A net sounds primitive next to a missile. It isn't. It's the answer to a problem that stumped this kind of defense for years. Jamming the drone's signal seems like the obvious move. Break the link between the drone and whoever's flying it, and the thing falls out of the sky. Try it in a city, though. Downtown is already drowning in cell towers, Wi-Fi, and air traffic, and flooding all of that with jamming noise is messy and hit or miss. And the best drones don't even need a signal to jam. One flying a preloaded GPS route is following a map it already memorized. One on a fiber optic tether is taking orders down a glass thread no jammer can touch. Cut the radio and they keep flying. The net doesn't care how the drone is guided. It tangles up the rotors and physics does the rest. No signal to break, no debris, no rounds coming back down. And the numbers are the fun part. These interceptors catch around 85% of what they chase. And the launcher reloads and flies again. Drop in a fresh net, swap the battery, and one bird runs sortie after sortie in an afternoon. Most counter-drone gear is one and done. One shot, one target, then a long reload while the next drone keeps coming. This one just lands and goes back up. It also scales. That's the part that matters most going forward. Pair a handful of interceptors under one brain and they answer a swarm. 5 interceptors, 5 targets, each chasing its own the way fighter jets get vectored into separate contacts. The threat stopped being one hobbyist with a quadcopter a while ago. The fighting in Ukraine turned coordinated swarms into a standard tactic. A defense that can only catch them one at a time is a defense that loses, which is exactly where the strangest piece of the upgrade comes in. There's a plan for a drone port, a launch deck built right onto the roof of the new ballroom at the White House, holding interceptors fueled and ready to fly. Same logic as the net, pushed to its end. Right now, an interceptor has to be trucked in or staged nearby, and every second it spends getting airborne is a second the threat keeps closing. Park them on the roof, and the delay vanishes. The deck sits at the highest point for blocks, with a clear line to the sky in every direction. A drone gets heard, the brain picks a target, and an interceptor is climbing off the roof before a person could finish describing the threat. The drones couldn't wait for anything to cross the lawn. They'd meet it over the city, blocks out, while it's still nowhere near the building. The defense stops being a goalie and turns into a hunter that leaves the net. Straight talk on that one. The drone port is a pitch. Renderings, the phrase unlimited drones. An argument being made to get the ballroom built. It's not a finished thing bolted to a roof, but the direction it points is real, and it lines up exactly with the hardware the Secret Service is already buying. The roof launch deck is just the near-future version of the box of microphones that started this. The same instinct, scaled up and pushed out over the city. And riding over all of it is a layer nobody will ever put on display. The microphones, the cameras, the radar, the ground sensors, the interceptors. Every feed pours into one piece of software that watches all of them at once. Here's why that fusion matters. Radar alone can't tell a drone from a pigeon. The microphones can. The camera confirms it. No single sensor can be trusted by itself. But stack their answers together and the false alarms cancel out. The radar blip the microphones don't hear is a bird. The buzz the camera locks onto is a drone. The brain runs that cross-check hundreds of times a second, and it's learning to do more than cross-check. The near-future version doesn't just confirm a threat, it predicts one. It watches the pattern of a crowd and flags the person moving against the flow. It tracks a vehicle that circles the block one too many times. It learns what a normal day on the grounds look like, down to the rhythm of traffic and foot traffic. The moment something breaks that rhythm, it raises a hand. A human team can watch 100 screens. This watches all of them, all the time, and never blinks. It flags the real thing before a person is even looking. That's the sky handled. Every piece of it points up. The microphones, the nets, the launch deck, the brain stitching them all together, which is actually the whole problem with looking up. It means looking away from the ground. So picture the threat changing shape. It gives up on the air and comes in low, on foot, where the cameras aren't pointed. The first thing it hits is the perimeter, and the perimeter got rebuilt too. The fence is a wall of steel set deep in concrete, 13 feet of it now, nearly double the old 6.5-foot railing a fence jumper used to clear in seconds. Too tall to vault and shaped at the top so there's nothing to grab. But the steel is the dumb part. The smart part is buried. Pressure sensors and fiber lines run along the line, tuned to feel a person climbing or cutting. The tuning is the hard part. Too sensitive and every gust and stray cat sets it off. Too dull and a careful climber slips through clean. Set up right, it ignores the wind and the squirrels and screams the instant a human hand loads the rail. Touch the fence wrong and the board lights up in a command post before a boot clears the top. Get past that, and the next layer has paws. The dogs are Belgian Malinois, bred down to a single job: close the distance faster than a person can run it and lock on. They cover the ground a fence can't, the open lawn where a sprinter would otherwise have 10 clear seconds. Between the buried sensors and the dogs, the lawn that looks empty is the most watched grass in the country. But say the threat is smarter than a sprint. It doesn't climb anything. It walks up in a suit, holding a real invitation into a room full of guests, while everyone's still watching the sky. This is the gap the next layer of the upgrade is built to close. It's also the hardest gap of all, because the threat looks exactly like everyone around it. There's no fence to vault, no buzz to hear, no signature to lock onto. The defense has to find one wrong person in a crowd of people who all belong there, and it starts with the room itself. The argument is simple: stop renting other people's buildings. A hardened ballroom on the grounds is a room the Secret Service controls down to the studs, the doors, the sight lines, the screening baked into the walls. Instead of bolted on at a checkpoint a guest can just sprint past, the whole room becomes the checkpoint. It's the most expensive possible way to never have to trust a hotel ballroom again. And it's the single biggest line in the package. Built-in screening is the part that does the quiet work. In a rented hall, the metal detector is a box at the door, and past that box, you're trusted. Build the room yourself and the sensing never stops. Detection runs in the walls and the door frames. It sweeps for metal and for the chemistry of an explosive the whole time a guest is inside, not just on the way in. There's no single choke point to rush, because there's no point where the room stops checking. A threat that beats the door still hasn't beaten the room. Then there's the glass, and the glass is doing something more clever than it looks. It doesn't stop a bullet the way a wall does. It spreads it. Fire into a slab of concrete and the round punches through one weak point and keeps going. All that energy focused on a spot the size of a coin. Fire into ballistic laminate, sheets of glass and polymer bonded inches thick, and the round hits the first layer and starts to slow down. The polymer between the layers stretches instead of cracking, grabbing the round and smearing its energy sideways across the whole pane. Layer by layer, the shot loses speed until there's nothing left to push through. Too rigid and the pane shatters like a windshield and lets the pieces fly. Too soft and the round sails straight through. The laminate splits the difference, stiff enough to hold its shape and soft enough to catch the shot without coming apart. Every window on the exterior can be built this way, and that same glass is going in across the whole complex. This is where the money got loud. A roughly $1 billion package for the work landed in Congress and slammed into a wall of its own. Republicans balked at the cost, the timing, and where exactly the dollars would go. The grounded number is smaller. The Secret Service asked for about $220 million tied to the ballroom. That covers the bulletproof glass, the drone detection, the threat filtration, and a new screening center to vet every visitor before they reach the building. The billion is the ambition. The $220 million is the part with a receipt, but the room and the glass only answer a threat that comes through the door. The next one doesn't bother with the door at all. Picture something toxic drifting over the grounds, a chemical release, a biological agent on the wind. The hardened building's doors swing shut and seal with a faint hiss. Watch where the air goes. It doesn't get pulled inside, it pushes out, streaming through every crack and seam, flowing out against the threat. That's positive pressure, the core trick behind the building's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear filtration. The structure seals itself and runs its own air on a closed loop. It pulls outside air in through banks of filters that strip out particles, droplets, and toxic gas before any of it reaches a lung. Then it pumps that scrubbed air in faster than the building can leak. That holds the inside at higher pressure than the outside, and the pressure gap is the whole air defense. Air only flows from high to low, so the only direction anything can move through a crack is out. A contaminated breeze hits the building and gets pushed back off it. The balance has to stay in a tight band though. Too low and the pressure gap collapses and the outside leaks in. Too high and the doors won't open against it and the seals start to strain. The system rides that line automatically for as long as the threat exists. It's the same trick a clean room uses at a microchip plant, where one speck of dust ruins a wafer worth a fortune. That hiss when the door seals is the whole building being held at a higher pressure than the world around it. And there's a part of the upgrade going in below the grass. The plan describes a complex beneath the ballroom, a hardened space dug deep with room for far more than a dance floor. The confirmed specifics are thin, and the people building it say little. What's clear is that they're digging something big down there, and they're doing it quietly. Going deep buys two things at once. It puts hard earth between the important rooms and anything that hits the surface. And it hides the layout, so an attacker planning against the building can't map what they can't see. But one room down there is the layer everything else falls back to. When the threat beats every system above ground, a president gets walked fast through a blast door. It's a slab of hardened steel that seals behind him with that same pressurized hiss. On the other side is a room with its own communications, its own air, and its own power. The links run out on hardened lines that don't depend on the grid or the cell network above. The air comes off the same kind of sealed, filtered, positive pressure loop protecting the floors overhead. The power sits on generators with fuel stored on site. Cut every cable and pipe feeding the building and the room keeps running, long enough to command the whole country while the world above it sorts itself out. The temptation is to call that bunker the last place to hide. The sharper read is this: every layer above it is built to catch the threat early, out in the air, at the wall, at the door. The bunker is the one layer that admits the catching might fail. You can net the flyer blocks from the lawn. You can stop the shooter at a wall you own. But a cloud on the wind and a siege that simply waits you out can't be caught early. For those, the only move is the oldest one there is. Drop below the ground, seal the door, and outlast it. So the most aggressive, catch-it-first build in the world still bottoms out in a sealed room underground. That's the tension running through the whole project. Hundreds of millions, maybe $1 billion, spent to push the defense outward. Microphones reaching a mile into the sky. Nets flying out to meet a threat over the city. A launch deck on the roof. And all of it sitting on top of a hole in the ground that says, if none of that works, go here. For those same 200 years, the rule was simple. Survive the breach. Something got over the fence, so the fence got taller. Something flew at it, so the airspace got tighter. Patch the last hole, wait for the next one scar at a time. What's going up now flips it. Don't survive the breach, make sure it never reaches you. Microphones fingerprinting a buzz from a mile out. Nets waiting in the air. A room that breathes its own air. A floor that drops away to a vault when the worst happens. And on a roof that isn't even built yet, drones lined up, pointed at a sky that for the first time is being watched before anything shows up in it. They're looking up now. If you enjoyed this video, then look at these insane White House security features currently in place today. Bye for now.